In almost every disaster, the point of notification really comes to the emergency department, and then the activation of the hospital's response generally follows from that. In the event of an overt attack, say an explosion or a chemical release, patients will become symptomatic pretty readily, and this will be called to the attention of the immediate response community. 911 responders would at some point make notification of the hospitals that they're going to be taking patients to. The physician and nursing staff that's on duty there has to make some determination of how many patients they think they can safely accommodate and of what nature of patients they can handle. The activation of the hospital's disaster plan then generally begins with the emergency department. Once hospital administration is notified that something big is happening that's going to impact the institution, the Hospital Emergency Incident Command System mandates that all of the hospital units that are likely to be involved are alerted and they activate their own plans. Your hospital administrative policy group would convene. They would set up their emergency operations center within the hospital so that they could coordinate all of the resources and personnel to manage the incident here at your facility, but also they would link to the broader community by having a liaison with the county or the municipality involved that would be coordinating all of the medical responses by yours and other hospitals, as well as all the other agencies that would be involved in responding to this sort of an incident. In a biological outbreak caused by a terrorist event, the response may be a little bit different. And it may be different because the event itself may be unheralded. When a disease outbreak happens, we don't necessarily know it until we recognize it. And so the experience of the hospital may be to see an increased number of patients presenting with certain types of symptoms. It may be picked up by a sharp clinician who recognizes a rash or a chest x-ray finding or something. It may be a nurse who picks up a second or third type of case that manifests these kinds of conditions that they hadn't seen before. It may come down from a laboratory finding, but regardless, once it's recognized, either the physicians, the infection control staff, somebody from hospital administration will have to notify the local health department. The health department then becomes the conduit to bringing in laboratory resources, activation of the Centers for Disease Control, and all of the resources that the federal government might have that might be necessary to either prophylax the population that's exposed or to treat patients.
Staff protection in a CBRNE event requires basically two components. One is protection of the facility, because you don't want contaminated individuals entering your facility and possibly causing contamination of your staff or your equipment. The second component is making sure that individuals that might come in contact with these contaminated individuals would have proper training and personal protective equipment so that they don't get contaminated in the process of doing their job.
An issue in any mass casualty response for the hospital becomes tracking the flow of patients through the institution.
We do have to alter our registration procedures in a mass casualty event. All of the patients have sequential disaster numbers, and that will be the primary identifier on the patient for the purposes of the blood bank and radiology, all the ancillary services that will be involved in the care of the patient. When the patient comes in and presents at triage, the nurse will determine where they're going to go and the level of treatment. The registration person will then put a bracelet on with the corresponding color so we know what level of care that patient is going to have. Immediate is red, delayed is yellow, green is the minor, and then of course if we have any deceased patients, they would be banded in black. We have various copies on this registration sheet. This one goes to the central work area so that they know what patients are arriving. One goes to the registration because we are entering information into our mainframe, and there also is a log being kept in the triage area by another staff person so that we can put it into the database. In a disaster, there could be power down. We may not have any computer support, so we have to be able to maintain the protocols that will allow us for doing everything manually, as well as possibly the luxury of having the computers and everything up.
When there's a disaster at your institution, the Media Relations Office should make sure that they work hand in hand with the Emergency Operations Center. You want to make sure that your office, the Media Relations Office, has a seat at the table. In addition, it's really, really important for you to only speak on behalf of your institution. It can be very tempting sometimes to speculate about what's going on with the police activity or fire or other outside agencies. One of the goals that media relations has is to make sure that you can calm the fears of the public, get out accurate information, and to do so you need to work very closely with the senior leadership and speak with one voice from your hospital institution.
While you want to accommodate and take care of people from an acute incident, you can't forget the fact that you've got a hospital full of patients that still need to be cared for. This may require calling in extra staff for prolonged periods of time or activating mutual assistance through your county emergency operations system to get you people who can help you continue to care for patients that are in your institution. It may ultimately require you to transfer patients from your hospital to another hospital so that everybody can share in the management of this large influx. The game plan is to try and get back to your usual operating mode as quickly as possible. The influx of patients will itself, at least in a blast, chemical, or a natural disaster, be relatively of short duration. This may all occur over a matter of hours to a couple of days. A biological incident may erupt and keep creeping through your system for a matter of days to weeks, and that will require a very high level of response and resource allocation.